Hello, welcome to Sister Friends Cups and Conversation. I'm your host, Teresa Cooper, and I'm glad that you've joined me today. We're getting ready to go behind the veil, behind the curtain, and we're going to talk to two preachers' kids, two PKs, and we're going to talk intimately about how they are thriving and how they are flourishing as preachers' kids. Are you ready to talk? Let's go. Hello, welcome to Sister Friends Cups and Conversation. I'm your host, Teresa Cooper, and I'm glad that you've joined me today. I got my co-host, Catherine Young.
And it's good to be here. This is going to be awesome. I can feel it.
Yes, it is. Kathy, this is our 10th episode for season 6, and we've had some great, meaningful conversation, and today's conversation is going to be off the charts.
Yes.
We've got two PKs.
Yes.
Preacher's kids. We got Preacher's kids at the table. We have Elena Williams. And then we have Shemaiah Williams.
All right.
And they are not related. So we welcome them to the table. They've got our Sister Friends cups. And if you haven't got a Sister Friends cup, you got to go to our website and get one so that you can join the conversation next season and all season around as we sip and talk.
Yes.
And our special cup for today is Friends and Family.
Yeah.
And I picked this cup because, you know, PKs, if we don't know nothing else, we know friends and we know family.
Yes.
And Jesus is love, and that's one thing that in a PK home that they teach you is friends and family. And so that's our special cup today. You know, and when you talk about being a PK, a preacher's kid, you know, you got to have some thick skin.
Yes. Yes.
You really do. You have to have some thick skin. So I commend you ladies for being at the table with us today.
Thank you.
Yes, so we're going to be talking about the real life, the real experience of what it means to be a preacher's kid. And when I say a preacher's kid, that means whether you're a pastor, an evangelist, a teacher, any fivefold gifts, a psalmist. If you're ministering full time and you have children, those children would be considered preacher's kids.
Yes.
And they somewhat live in a fishbowl.
Yes.
And so we want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But I wanted also, ladies, we hear a lot of negativity.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's always, some negative connotation attached to when you say PK.
Yes.
And we'll talk a little bit about that, but I really wanted us to focus today on what thriving looks like,
Yeah.
Yes.
what
That's
thriving as a PK looks like. Because even though it's a broad spectrum, and in that spectrum, everybody doesn't have a traumatic experience.
Right.
Then
Yeah.
they may have some great life experience, that comes with being a PK. There's no way around it because you're dealing with friends and family.
Yeah.
But there's some people that have thriving stories,
Yeah.
and the basic definition of thriving means to flourish, to be successful, to prosper, to grow and develop vigorously. That's the textbook definition of thriving. So I want to talk about what PK's lifestyle and life looks like when it's flourishing, when it's successful, when it's fortunate, and just a little bit more on the good side. Kathy, when you talk about being a PK, your mama was a preacher.
Yes.
She was more of a social activist
Yes.
preacher.
Yes.
But when you hear people talk about PKs in your experience, is it both positive and negative, or have you mainly heard negative?
Mainly hear negative all the time.
Yeah.
Because they always think that preachers' children have to live a certain standard.
Yeah.
They never see their humanity, but they think we like our, the parents, men and women of the cloth. So they expect their children to follow that same line. And oftentimes they don't. We forget
Right.
that they're human and they meet up some of the same temptations and other things as other people do.
Yeah, exactly. Do you ladies feel like it's one of those career fields where people put undue pressure on the children versus, say, if someone's an ice skater or if someone's a doctor, they don't necessarily think that their child is going to know, how to ice skate, or that their child's going to be as brilliant as their parents in the medical field, or in whatever the field may be. But pretty much when it comes to being a PK, it's like the whole family's in the ministry.
Yes.
Right. You know what I mean? It's like you don't get
By
a choice.
default, yeah.
Right? By default. Right? It's like,
You don't get a choice.
So did you all experience that?
Yes, I definitely did. Because we had to be the praise team, the ushers, the nursery worker. But people automatically think, oh, you're going to be a pastor just like your dad.
Yes.
You're going to do this. And trying to find our own identity has been the whole thing of being a PK, So just trying to tell people, no, I don't always have to walk after that. Yes, that was my example, but I have my own identity.
That's
That's
good.
what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Shemaya?
I really agree with Elena on that. I think that, trying to find your identity, and when you are, going through different stages of life, as a young child and then growing older, you start to do more work in the church and just, all eyes is on you all the time, and there's a lot of pressure. You hear all of the naysayers outside of church saying all of these things about you, and I'm like, okay, I'm not like that. That's not who I am. And so, finding your identity and knowing that. And I think, when I think about, a PK, I also think about the parent, being a parent keeper. You're keeping. You're a keeper of your parent. You're covering them. You're praying for them. You are, fasting for them. You are pouring out to them. You're encouraging them. You're checking in. And so it's definitely a challenge, but it's worth the journey.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So if you're watching today, we're talking with PKs, preacher kids, and I love what Shemaya said. She said PK, keeper of the parent. That's powerful, and because I think sometimes you're the keeper of the parent and you don't even realize that you are. It's a realization that comes maybe as you're adulting. But you don't really realize that can be an extra stress because you're seeing your parents at home. You see them wore out, you see them crying, you see them hurting. And it relates to pastoring people or interacting with people, and so you instinctively, without realizing it, try to shield them and protect them. And so that could be, would you guys say that that's a big weight that you've had to carry?
Yes, I always call myself a bodyguard for my parents.
Okay, a bodyguard.
Because I see, you see your parents go through so much, and I'm like, I'm tired of this, so I'm going to try my best to protect.
Okay.
So I always said a bodyguard, so that probably was.
Let me ask you a question, both of you. How do you keep your heart?
Yeah.
Because you love your parents, and you see how people treat them at times, and you still got to keep the standard, but then you got to also protect your heart because you don't want to be angry and bitter at people for the way they treated your parents.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a constantly, God, cleanse my heart, wash my heart, forgive me. Like if I think of something wrong, like, oh, they get on my nerves, I really wish I can just go, off, but I can't do that, I have to be an example because there are other kids that are watching me, working as a youth pastor in the church. There are other kids that are watching me. So I have to constantly ask the Lord, forgive me, cleanse me, take out anything in my mind that is not like you. I need you to come in right now and invade my space.
Okay,
those kinds of things.
So that's one of the ways that you've moved past the pain.
Yes.
Because it's almost as if the reality is you can't be a PK or work in a service industry because preachers are in the public service ministry, and you can't live in that space helping people, seeing people at their best and seeing people at their worst, and not feel the pain.
Right.
Especially when you're doing it with the hands and the feet of Jesus. And you really want to model the Jesus lifestyle, then that means you're gonna feel the pain because people aren't perfect. And so one of the ways I hear you saying, Shemaya, that you moved past the pain was constantly putting yourself on the altar to the Lord and asking him to clean your heart, asking him to help you to walk in forgiveness.
Yes.
Have you guys experienced where people did things, they did things that were wrong, and then, but by the time you got through praying and asking God to purge you, you forgot all about it.
Yes.
You didn't even remember.
Absolutely, many times.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually the only way you can continue
Right.
to flourish and to do ministry is as you have to really give it to the Lord.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me ask you, you know, I heard somebody say, feel the fear and let it go. You know, it's like you have to feel all the emotions,
Yeah.
confront whatever the anxieties and the fears are, but then you have to let it go. Do you guys feel like you've had to let, you know, we hear a lot of people talking about what church or what church experiences have done to them as being in the pew. Do you all feel like people hear you as PKs and as, you know, the children of the preacher or the song leader or the Sunday school teacher? Do you all feel like people have heard you?
In a certain setting, not in a personal level. Like I said, they see you on stage, they see you ministering, they see you doing other stuff, but they don't take time to hear you. They don't take time to hear your heart or hear your struggles. They feel like you should be the strongest one, you should be doing this, but it's, yeah, I'll say it's 50-50.
50-50? Okay, that sounds about right. What about you, Shemaya?
I definitely agree with Elena on that because it's like they expect you to know everything just about, you know, that it's just so much pressure sometimes, and it's difficult. Like you want to just check in sometimes. You want to like pour out your heart, you know, you're like ministering to everybody else, but it's like, you know, no one is pouring back into you.
Yeah.
You know, we have mom and dad, they are there, but we, you know, need those other PKs that we can lean on and that we can talk to. We need accountability.
Yeah.
And we need, you know, encouragement and mentors.
Okay, and that's a key for you both, because you're an entrepreneur.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me a little bit about what you do.
Yes, I am a full-time gym owner, and also I sing background for various artists.
Okay.
So right now with my gym, it's located in Monroe, Louisiana, and that has taught me, honestly, ministry and running a full-time gym has taught me, because it's like parallel.
Okay.
Being consistent, being determined no matter how hard it is, and pouring into people still. So that's a whole nother ministry within itself.
Yeah.
So growing up in a home doing ministry, being an entrepreneur was kind of easy peasy, honestly. But yes, so running the full-time gym in Monroe has been life-changing.
Awesome. Okay. And Shemaya, what do you do for a living? What's your career field?
I'm a family therapist. I work for the Center of Children and Families in Monroe. I also work in like substance abuse counseling.
Yeah.
Where I deal with adults who have are going through a process of trying to recover and heal and maintain their sobriety.
Okay.
And as well as youth pastor at my church, and I have a business as well called Jesus Grow Enterprise, where we help women grow spiritually, build legacy, and heal mentally.
Yeah, awesome. Now, do you guys see where what you're doing now has intersected? It's actually started in church, you know, with your parents, and then it just yes. And so the wisdoms and the life experience as a PK has equipped you in various occupations and in various, you know, other areas other than just. I love what you said, Elena, earlier. The beginning, you talked about the biggest fight has been to find your own identity, and you guys, and when you guys have done that, and that's really what PK thriving. Seeing them thrive is when you see them being their authentic selves, and not necessarily a copy. Duplicate of what maybe their parents were. Just the same foundation when it comes to Jesus.
Definitely.
But doing it in a different way, in a different, you know, sector.
You know what I love about you too, since the show is on thriving, because oftentimes you see PK kids, they just leave the church.
Right.
Because of how their parents were treated or how they were treated in the church. But how you used all of that, like you said, to build a foundation for something greater to thrive in.
Right.
Because you see all the time, I talk to people, you know, my dad was a pastor, but they live in contrary to the church because of everything that was. but do you think your parents instilled in you to fly even after they know what you saw and what you've been through? Were your parents the type that say, you know what, don't pay attention to what they say and do. You do this. You go above that.
Yeah.
Right.
I believe they spoke life into us. And encouraged us to have a relationship with God on our own.
Yeah,
So that's
good.
what made us stay and help with the ministry and not be affected by many things that happened because we had our own relationship.
Yeah.
And so with that, our identity came in Christ.
Yeah.
So we just, with me opening my gym, people were like, where did that come from? Like this doesn't even match, but finding my identity in Christ, pushed me to do more things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes.
One of the things I wrote down, like little 5 points, and you guys can tell me, is it true or is it false? Okay. True or false? Everyone thinks you're a therapist because you're a PK. Is that true?
True. That's true.
Very true.
Very true.
Everybody thinks, that you're a therapist. Vicariously, just because you lived in your parents' home, they ought to know something. They should be able to counsel me, and every movie makes you look like a psycho murderer. Every movie, any PK that's portrayed in a movie, the kid always is either mentally, psychotic or violent, or this is true? Okay.
That's true.
Let me see. That once, if you're dating, if they hear that your father is a preacher, it tends to scare the potential, date away.
Yes,
It's true.
I mean, what? Very true.
How and in what way? Tell me.
I had one person say, well, he's going to read my life. He's going to automatically see my sins. And I'm just like,
Prophesy to me. He's going to prophesy.
yeah, he's going to prophesy.
Okay. Anything you do may end up in a sermon.
Oh,
Definitely, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You are the topic.
So did you ever give your parents, like our kids would have little signals, you know what I mean? Like they would let us know, like, different things. But did you ever tell your parents, like, if something happened or if they corrected you in an area, or you had, whether it was good or bad, did you ever tell your parents, like, don't tell nobody? Don't share that in your sermon, or you told them,
Yes,
or you
I
just
definitely told
okay.
them.
Yes, and they do it anyway.
I don't want to hear this on Sunday. And then you hear it on Sunday.
So PK's parents are kind of like comedians, because comedians use their real life a lot of times in their comedy. Yes, it's fair game. Okay, let me see. Having so many opinions but not being able to talk about them. Did you feel like as a PK that you had to not really share all of your opinions or thoughts with your parents for whatever reason? The obvious reason is because if it ain't got nothing to do with Jesus.
we don't want to hear it.
I know, like my husband at one point, my daughter, she was really into dance. And boy, she just wanted to tap dance. And she wanted to be a ballerina. And he shut all that down back in the day because he was like, if you're not dancing for Jesus, it's not dance. And now we laugh about it, and now she teases him about it. It was a stage that he was in. But I mean, how did that work in y'all's household?
I only think I could really think of, we were very traditional, very religious, not being able to wear pants or anything like that. So me coming to my dad one time, like, Dad, we're about to go skating. Can I please wear some pants? He was like, I don't want to hear that. You better put your skirt on and you better go skating. I was like, but yeah, thinking back on it, it was pretty hilarious.
Well, let me ask you this, because generally, growing up as a PK, there's a lot of, you can't, do not, I think people have grown.
Definitely.
As a society, and people of faith have grown to where they realize that there's more liberties and there's more things that you can do. And if we focus on the things that we can do, the things that we don't do just become, we're not really interested in. But if we always focus on what we can't do. Those are the things that people want to do. Like the stove is hot. The stove is hot. Don't touch it. If you're constantly telling them that, they're in their natural curiosity. They're like, I'm gonna touch and see for myself. You know,
And that's true.
And it's true. Yeah.
It's true.
So, how did you navigate? You know, in that area of the don'ts you can't do, but helping your parents to grow into, you know, certain liberties that, you know, they weren't, you know, hell and heaven breakers. Dad, it's skating.
Yeah.
Can I go swimming with a swimsuit on and not a skirt and a long shirt?
That definitely was
do
one
you
too.
see where maybe we're now, you could say it was a little overboard, but then say, but I thank God for my parents because now there's a certain standard or there's a certain level of healthy modesty that I have that is good for me. Yeah. That's good for the character that I'm building. It's good for the career that I have. And that, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can y'all speak on that?
I think I'll share a story. One time when I had to go to homecoming.
Okay.
And I wanted to go to homecoming so bad, and my dad was like, "No, you're going to revival." I'm like, "Oh no, revival! I want to go have a good time with my friends." Yeah. And so my mom, she just really, you know, got him really good, and I was at homecoming. But I think a thing is like balance. You know, we have to have balance as PKs, and it's important that our parents, you know, understand that, and we have a, you know, understanding. Right. And even though we, you know, have disagreements, the power of understanding is so important, and it keeps a relationship strong, whether it's parents or, you know, whatever kind of relationship it is. If we have understanding, we can make it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the things that we did with our kids is obviously we didn't co-sign going to house parties. But what we did say to them is, because we were young and we, you know, remembered our youth. And so it was like, okay, you can go to Sadie Hawkins, you can go to homecoming, you can go to prom. Now all that other stuff we can't do. We're not doing, but we're gonna give you monumental moments. You know, and that's important to be able to communicate with your parents. What are the monumental moments? Like, you know, I'm gonna go from middle school to high school. Let's sit down and talk about what that looks like.
That's good.
You know, what that looks like. And then finding the balance. You know what I mean? Because you want your children to look back on their experience and have more good than bad in their experience. Because it's really a weird thing, because it's not just surviving or thriving in your parents' home. It's like surviving and thriving in your spiritual coverings home. You know, your because your dad's and your mom is your pastor, and they're your dad. You know, even to this day, like my daughter is in her 30s, and sometimes she'll be like, is you talking to me as my mama, or are you talking to me as the pastor?
That sound like somebody.
And so, you know what I mean? And so we have that understanding. It's like, sometimes I say, okay, no, this is from the Lord, the word of the Lord from the Lord. Because if I was your mama, you know, and having that type of relationship that you're able to know the difference and to grow in that space. Kathy, is there something you want to add?
It's like, I know a family, I was just telling a coworker, they were in church Monday through Saturday and then stay all day Sunday. And now most of those kids don't serve the Lord because to them the Lord was a taskmaster. You know, and the parents didn't protect in that area, because we understand it's a different time and it's a different day. So they didn't protect you. Got to do this as you're going to hell and you know. But then I look at my son now, after you learn, after so many years, because I could be strict, we can't do that. That's the devil. But then you learn, and then a lot of things he'll tell me now, he'll say, I remember a lot of things you and Daddy told me, and I understand now. Because when they get kids, they start to understand. It might not be as strict as we were, but they understand. And a lot of things that my daughter not comfortable talking with me about, and it's not that I'm going to judge her, because she understands, she could talk to me. But sometimes as pastors, we need to understand that our children need to hear a different voice too.
Absolutely.
And I aim her to people, go talk to Pastor Teresa, go talk to Miss Sophia. and tell them different things that they could hear from a different voice. It's all going to be the same thing.
Right.
But sometimes as pastors, we don't give people that opportunity.
Right.
Now, we can't let everybody do it.
No, you can't. Right.
But you got to direct them to
Right.
which
So
people that
Right.
they could trust. I
Right.
trust Pastor Teresa. I
Right.
trust Sophia. Go talk to those ladies just so they can hear something
Right.
different. But I think sometimes as pastors, we shelter our children. We think we're the only voice of the Lord. And we don't do it to be mean or and be intentional. But sometimes they need that liberty to feel free. I could go somewhere
Right.
else.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you ladies this. Do you feel like sometimes you felt, you're talking about the keepers of the parents, that it wasn't that your parents didn't want to do that, but they didn't feel like they had a safe space or safe, that there were people in there, they may be pastoring the people and they're fulfilling their call.
Yeah.
They're doing what God's called them to do, but when they look out on the audience, there isn't a safe space for their children, because their children are vulnerable. Their children, they can speak up for themselves, but my child may not be able to. So they didn't give that out of concern.
Yes.
Do you all feel
I
that?
get what you're saying. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say, because my dad always say, you got to look at the bigger picture. You got to see the perspective, like see from my perspective. And I'm just like, Dad, I just want to go speak to her, or do, different things, open up my heart. But like you said, they didn't have a safe space.
Right.
So they're not going to put us in that, environment for us to be hurt or broken in that. So
Because sometimes, let me ask you ladies this, it may not have happened to you, but I've seen it, where people will use the pastor's children against them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, or to try to get
that.
information out of them,
Yeah.
for leverage.
Constantly asking
You know.
questions. The question,
Yes.
I'm like, you go talk to me.
Yes.
Try to make
Right.
you
in the middle.
Right.
Trying to put you in the
Yeah.
middle. Yeah.
Let me
The tug
ask.
of war.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me ask you, what's one thing you would want people to know about being a PK that you wish that they knew about it?
It's not all glam.
No,
it's not all. It's not glam and glitter. That we feel the pain of our parents.
Okay.
So when they're hurting, we're hurting. And so just how you said, being your parents' keeper, but that we're also in ministry even if we're not serving.
Okay.
I've had some PK friends, and they're not really serving in the church, but they are feeling and trying to heal their parents at home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there could be a sense of ministry, but, we feel everything they feel.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That's a heavy load.
it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
It's
it
a
is.
lot. Yeah.
And I would say, definitely, if you're watching today and you're a PK, and you feel like you're carrying your parents' load, I would say to you that God can care for them much greater than what you can, and that I don't think that that's the best, the best that God has for you, as it relates to just shouldering that pressure, because it's pressure just on its own, and just being a child or being a parent to any parent that's in the public eye.
Yeah.
Whether it's politics, whether it's acting, entertainment, whatever. If you're in the public eye, that's a whole nother kind of pressure. That comes with that. But then when you take on and it becomes a burden, you know what I mean? Some burdens are only meant for God to carry.
That's good.
And not for us to carry. You know what I mean? And I would definitely say, as a PK, that would be one, because we're not talking about natural things.
Yeah.
We're talking about spiritual things. You know what I mean? And life eternities. And so that's a lot.
Yes.
To walk around with, especially if you're not called to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just up close in proximity.
Yes.
But maybe that may not be your call. What would be one thing you would want somebody to know about a PK?
Just what you stated. I actually just went through like that, of just trying to give it to God, and it was difficult, but once I gave it to God and say, God, you take this, I can't do this, because I'm the type of person that's I have to like feel like I'm the healer in my family. Like, I gotta go to them. Okay, come on, let's do some deep breathing. What's going on? And I'll still, be hurting and stuff. So that's where I'll go in my room and I'll just try to, pray and just talk to God. But mentorship, you need that. If you need counseling, you need that. God has given us resources. Use your resources to reach out and know that you are loved.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be defined by people.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, do you all feel like you've been traumatized by being a PK and being in a religious, growing up in a religious culture in a setting? Or do you feel like you've had bad experiences and it's layered your life and it's made you more, giving you more character and more awareness? So I just feel like we're living in a space right now where everybody wants to call everything trauma.
Yes.
It was a trauma,
I don't know what it is.
And can you speak to that? I know you're a professional in that area.
Yeah. I know sometimes we can like put things on top of things, especially in a pandemic. We can put layers on top of layers, and it's just caused so much trauma to be created when there was probably no trauma there.
Right.
And so trauma is so many things. It's when people, we talk about trauma, sometimes they feel like, oh, it's sexual things, but it's more than that. It's, depression, it's verbally, emotionally abuse. It's, it's a lot of things. It's trauma is so heavy. And I don't, I want to just like encourage somebody out there who's dealing with trauma, like really go and talk to someone about it.
Professional.
Yes, seek out professional help, because if you don't, it's going to pile up to like more depression, maybe lead to suicide. And so if you need someone to talk to, I'm available. You can talk to me, because it's a personal thing.
Yeah. Do you feel like being a PK has given you a greater insight into communicating with people?
Yes.
And being a people person, because from the time you're in nursery church in the church nursery, you're communicating with different people. You know what I mean? And so, what are some of the benefits? You know what I mean? Some of the takeaways that you can say. If I wouldn't have been in that setting, or if my parents weren't preachers, I probably would have never traveled the world. Or I probably wouldn't know how to get up and have a public speaking. Or I probably wouldn't have been versed in this or that. Is there one or two, you guys have some?
I would say definitely speaking in front of people.
Okay.
I used to be extremely shy until my dad put a mic in our hand. But yes, learning how to deal with different types of people.
Okay, yeah.
So just seeing the signs of different things, and so just being confident. And I mean, it's a lot of things that came out of it. A lot of good things that came out of it.
Absolutely. How about you, Shemaya?
I definitely agree with the speaking part, because it takes me a long time just to get up and just to put forth the effort to do it. It's definitely difficult sometimes. And also just talking to people, developing new relationships with people. I think that's something that I've grown into. Like, I have friends in Washington, New York that I talk to. I'm a part of a mentorship program called Black Women in Ministry, and I feel like I wouldn't have, known that, through my parents.
Right.
So that was a connection through my parents. I was able to be a part of that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So as you can see, these ladies are thriving, they're flourishing. There's a scripture in Psalms 1 and 3, and it says, "And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. And he should be like a tree planted by the rivers of water." When the greatest benefit of being a PK is having that impartation and that seed of the gospel and of a authentic relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ being rooted in you. And then from that, you'll always be a flourishing tree. You'll always have fruit where people can pick from your life, and no matter what setting it is, because the seed was planted. And I have to say, that's one of the greatest things, Kathy, that I've been proud about with my children, is that we didn't want them to just have a church experience or a PK experience. We always wanted them to have a God experience.
That's good.
And because we knew that they had a authentic God experience, we could trust the path, their destinies, and their purpose, even though it may not look the way that we wanted it to look.
Right.
But because we gave them an authentic God experience, that they would flourish and they would have life. And so to this day, when we ask them about, how was growing up or how was being a part of New Creation, how did that work for you? And we've asked them, and they're in their 30s, and they've honestly said to us, man, we love New Creation. we and they have positive things, and they can name people, and they can call out people and families that have impacted them for the rest of their lives. And so that's the goal. That's what PK Thriving looks like. And this has been a great conversation. Kathy, do you have a last point you want to make?
I would just say to the preacher, and invest that time in your children. And they're going to have their God encounter, but they're going to always remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
In the midst of everything, you have the church world, and then we have what this cup say, our family.
Yes.
So in the end, that your children could be like what our children would say. They're not running from God, they're running to God.
Yes.
In their own way.
Yes, absolutely. So this has been a great conversation. This has been a great season, a great season 6, and I'm just so happy that we got to end our 10th season with these ladies, these thriving women that are making power moves in the earth for Jesus. And so thank you for joining us. Don't forget, Something to Sip On is next. Thank you for joining the conversation today. We had a great time talking with 2 preachers' kids. They kept it real, they kept it raw, and we talked about thriving as preachers' kids. We talked about flourishing as preachers' kids. Thank you for joining this conversation. This has been a great season 6. This was our 10th episode for this season, and I'm glad that you were a part of all the meaningful conversations that we shared. Be sure to like our platforms, our podcasts, share our YouTube page, and let's continue to grow the conversation. I can't wait to see you in season 7. And don't forget, Something to Sip On is next. Hello, this is Something to Sip On. I'm going to say to the PKs, they want you to see them for them and not through the lens of their parents. And once you see them for them, you'll discover all their great gifts, their talents, their abilities, and their call that's separate from their parents. And I want to say also to the parents, thank you for giving them a foundation and setting a standard. That's something to sip on. Kathy?
I would say thank you to the parents as well. And, giving them that firm foundation. The Bible tells us that children are an inheritance of the Lord. We also have to trust what we put in them, that they'll grow up to be good citizens, good kingdom people, and that they're going to have humanity issues every once in a while, but trust what we put in them, that they'll grow up and be responsible adults.
Absolutely. Shemaya, is there something you want to share?
Absolutely. I would like to say to a PK out there that you are loved by God and your identity is through Christ, and to also know that you're your parents' keeper.
Yes. How about you, Elena?
I would say what your parents have instilled in you, don't just let it stop there. Build your own relationship with God. Build your own identity in Christ. That's something to sip on.
Yes, something to sip on from these thriving PKs to you. Thank you for joining us on Something to Sip On.